So welcome everybody to a special edition of Martin's World. So I have with myself here this evening. We have Graham DeBarra. Graham DeBarra is joining me from Lisbon. So myself and Graham today took part in what is a global day of action, where we're calling on the governments of the world to decriminalise drug users and to make drug use a health issue and not a criminal issue. So I was out there in Cork today getting some festivities going, engaging with the public, and Graham was over in Portugal as well. So welcome along, Graham. Thanks for taking the time out and to join me here on the show this evening.
What's the crack, Martin? Hello, everyone. Anytime, man.
Yeah, it's the job to be able to catch up with yourself, I suppose. It was a pity that you weren't able to join us there today in Cork, but look, it was great to be able to partner with Portugal, like a country that's after decriminalising all drugs. You would think now that that there wouldn't be much need for campaigning over there. A lot of people here on the streets in Cork today, when I was talking with them, actually, were saying that they were kind of like, oh, there's an event in Lisbon in Portugal, for sure they decriminalised all drugs. And I was like, and then we engaged with the public, and they didn't realise there's still a long way to go when you decriminalise drugs, that it doesn't stop there. That's just the first step of many that's needed to be taken.
That's right, Martin. Here in the decriminalised capital of the world, behind me is the Castillo de São Jorge, which I aptly named Canela de São Jorge in my painting that I painted with heroin that actually was sold to me as cinnamon. So there you go. Like, we have, the streets here full of unknown substances, just like any other country in Europe, basically. So yeah, like the attempt here is to try, with Cork and Lisbon, we should become like sister cities with each other, because Ireland is a small country in Europe, Portugal is a small country in Europe, and I don't know why it is. And I was having a conversation with Cosmecare today with the executive director of Cosmecare. They do drug testing at music festivals, and now they have a permanent drug testing facility here that's funded by the government. And yeah, like that, it's like why, you ask the question, like, why do we have to keep kind of going with this, and why is it that small countries of Europe are the ones innovating and making the most noise? Like, you'd expect, like, if Germany was to legalize drugs tomorrow, every country in Europe would follow within a couple of years.
Yeah, you would think something like that would be needed, all right. Portugal at the time when they done this, I suppose they were kind of not doing well. There was a lot of problems going on in Portugal outside of their drug problems as well. There's been a lot of improvements there since, but they weren't really a shining example of a country within Europe at the time when they done this. So yeah, a lot
They're
of
very small, yeah, like they're very new. Like
yeah.
they got their revolution in 1974 with the Carnation Revolution.
Hmm.
Not a single fatality, except for one of the aristocrats committed suicide because he thought that the protesters were going to kill him in his castle. The protesters didn't go near anyone, and the soldiers were directed by the government at the time, by the king, to shoot and kill at any protesters. And the soldiers looked at them, put down their guns, and the women went forward and put carnations in the barrels of the guns here. So that's how the country began. Not a single fatality from anyone by the soldiers against the protesters, or the protesters against the soldiers, which really goes to show we are all just kind of the same, and we're one in any kind of battle. Some people are taking orders and they're wrongfully abiding by those orders, while in other revolutions, they just stop, and that's all you have to do is just put your guns down, and that was the end of their war against the dictatorship here and the monarchy.
Yeah.
Now it's just with drugs, it's just the same thing. Just put down your weapons and let people who use drugs alone. But still, in a country where you have decriminalization, there's a lot of work to do. And you're right, decriminalization is not an end in of itself. It's a means towards an end. And that end is a world where people who use drugs are not discriminated in any way, where there's no profit being made by criminal gangs, and where there's equal opportunity for everybody, regardless of your sexual orientation, your race, your ethnicity, the color of your eyes, or what drug or substance you use. And Portugal really have a long way to go, which a lot of people, they're just not really that aware of.
Well, one thing I did learn today, engaging with people on the street, is that the public is largely supportive of the need to make drug use a health issue and not a criminal issue. And when engaging with people today on the street, many people were actually able to talk about Portugal before I brought it up. They were like, oh yeah, sure, we should just do what Portugal have done. And I'm just like, this is great. But one important thing I have to bring up about today was the number of times people would support the message, support the campaign, but could not engage with it, because the campaign today, we were asking people to come in behind a banner or to step in front of a camera with a microphone and to give a few lines as to why they were supporting the campaign. Many people could not do either of those things because of stigma and fear. One person, just for an example, they were a coach of a soccer team. It was like, I coach kids and I couldn't be seen to be here supporting this campaign now, or the parents might view me as a person who uses drugs or supports drug use. So this really muddies the waters in our democracy, because this the views we have from the public, it's not a true representation of the views of their views, because it's so held back because of this fear and stigma. So we captured many photos there today on the street, and I'll pop them up there on screen for people to see these. So the campaign started off at home, where I got my kids to get involved with the campaign first. So they got involved with the campaign, showing their support for this notion, because they know what their dad has been through, being criminalised for my cannabis use. So they had no problem getting involved there. And my youngest here holding a sign saying, I support drug checking. And there was educating along with that sign then as well, where it shows what the meaning behind I support drug checking actually is. Talks about drug checking as a harm reduction service that analyses drug samples to identify their contents. In addition to providing information on the sample's composition, these services usually offer people whose drug health advice and referrals to further health interventions. So we actually had this sign out in the street there as well today, and a lot of people were commenting on that and saying they were supporting those kind of services. We had all sorts of people getting involved with us as well today. You know, we had a lot of older people. I think there's a big belief that the older generation doesn't support this, but we had quite a few people from the older generation getting involved with us as well out there. So there was good support. Even my old boxing dummy here and all was getting involved. Yeah, I'm just flicking through the photos there. I don't know where you are at G, but I'm a couple of photos in.
Yeah, like it just shows, diverse kind of people faces here. I'm just looking at them from behind the screen. As you say, young and old. Someone with a Rick and Morty hoodie. It's kind of a bit of everything. And like that's that's very much it. Is if people can come forward, because now generations are moving on, and the decision makers are very quickly becoming our generation. And we're now having to reflect and make decisions on the generations that are coming after us or since us. And I guess the big lesson here is that we need to listen to young people. And I don't really put myself in that category anymore. I'm 30 years old, and I know you're around the same. So I think once you kind of hit 30 to 35, once you go 35 and above, I don't know, are you considered young anymore? But when I say young, I mean like 14, 15, like people who are beginning to take drugs for the first time. Like these days, like those issues that these young people face may seem alien even to us. Yeah. So then how would you expect 60-plus-year-olds to make decisions when they haven't even listened to the immediate generation after them, never mind 4 generations down the line?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's so true. And it was very interesting actually out there today as well. Just the amount of people who were supporting the campaign, but were aware of the benefits of some of the changes there. So again, there was many people able to talk about the need for age limits to be put in place, and these were the older generation. So again, like this idea that they're not aware of this, that they're certainly aware of this. They're certainly aware of the amount of drugs as well being seized. That was commented on it as well here today. Sure, the guards are seizing loads of drugs, aren't they? Doing a great job. But it was a bit tongue-in-cheek. The person was actually saying it to me, and I didn't pick up on that at all at the time. I thought they were being very serious, saying that they're doing a great job. But no, there's many people out there that aren't happy with the way in which things are done, and the government are way out of bloody touch.
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
even the Gardaí themselves will admit that they can only really seize like 1 or 2% of the total supply.
Yeah, there was no guards there actually as well today. Interestingly enough, they never came near us, but there was no patrol on the street. I would have loved for the scene two Gardaí to be walking up the street doing just a on foot patrol, like but there was none out there in the city. Again, it shows how far removed they are. They're out there driving around in their cars, but they're not really engaging with the public in any positive and meaningful way in which they would have before. It was something that was going on the radio here yesterday. I think there was an older fella, older gentleman on, and he talked about like the role of the guard in the community maybe 20, 30 years ago, like that the guard had a much more positive role in the community, but they've been far removed from that now that they're out there doing other jobs, and there's no time for community policing properly anymore. Like I think if we were to decriminalise the drug users and make our Gardaí actually police our communities in a much more meaningful way, where they're not targeting non-violent drug offenders, and instead going after the people who are breaking into our houses, the people who are breaking into our cars, the people who are out there actually like doing harm to one another. And people were able to talk about this, like the wastes that go on because of this prohibition. So the public are very well aware of the changes that need to be happening.
The Gardaí are certainly very occupied at the moment. They're very occupied with a lot of alcohol use. Let's just be honest and just call it like it is, man. There's like a lot of people, things are open again and people are celebrating, and like not in a very sensible way that we're trying to advocate for, or that a way in which like could have been. I really hoped that society would have looked a bit different post-pandemic, but it's worse than it ever was before,
Well,
really.
you see all the shit there recently with the Guardian, the dropping of phone calls, that they haven't responded to over 3,000 domestic violent phone calls. Now, I don't know what the
Yeah,
backstory
on
is.
14 a couple of days ago. Yeah,
22,000 calls that were like regarded as being top priority. This is crazy. But meanwhile, if you get caught with cannabis, like there's no sparing of expenses to deal with you. Somebody made
no.
some comparison over on Reddit, and I thought it was a very good comparison to make. It was a woman who was making the comparison, I would believe, because she was talking about a friend of hers who was raped, and reported it to the Gardaí. And in doing so, that they kind of learned that, look, the guard said, look, this could take a couple of years actually to bring, even just to bring to court, maybe 3 to 5 years. But meanwhile, if you get caught with cannabis, you're going to be brought to court within maybe 6 to 18 months, kind of a thing. There's just a much.
It's a tricky one. It's a very difficult one to compare, between a possession charge or a supply charge and something like sexual assault. And that's like the justice system itself. Like, it's not down on any individual Garda, and it's not down on like, the Síochána, the Garda Síochána as an organization.
No, it's the system is messed
but
up.
it's the system in which that if all it takes is to just catch you possessing, and like if a lot of anyone who consumes drugs is going to be possessing, so like it's very easy. It's like like people who use drugs are the easiest people to persecute, like by far, of any crime. The easiest one.
Yeah.
It's the low hanging fruit, and it's unfortunate then that some allocation. It's never all the allocation of the Garda resources. It never will be the full allocation of Garda resources going after people who use drugs. And like the increase of seizures that we're seeing, it's not really a demonstration of Gardaí. It's more a demonstration that there's a lot of drugs in Ireland. There always have been. It has definitely increased, and it is on the rise because people are suffering right now, and they're using drugs as an escape.
Big time.
And more than drugs, like addictions of any sort, whether that be the internet or porn or social media or any like reading books. I don't know. There's loads of sort of escapes that you could be doing, but a lot of behaviors are not the healthiest because people have to go to the streets and get unregulated supply, and they have to go out and risk, make risks that are just unnecessary. And in doing that, especially if someone doesn't have a home in a good area, an affluent area, well, there's going to be more of a Garda presence in those areas. There's going to be more surveillance, and they're going to be able to catch you in your act. And if you don't have a home, God forbid, you're going to be the easiest target of anybody, because you're going to be just sitting there with probably alcohol in one hand and potentially another substance in another, and you could be done for 2 crimes, for having alcohol on the street, and which isn't a crime in Lisbon, like, or any European country as far as I'm aware. No. You can drink on this. It might, maybe in Portugal, I'm not actually sure about that, but a lot of European countries you can do that. And public drug use is kind of tolerated in some regard, some places around Europe. It definitely would. Like, you could smoke a joint here without a problem. The police here wouldn't be really interested. Okay. I don't think so. But again, it does depend. Like, it does depend on a lot of things. Like, I mean, as the saying goes around, sentencing with a judge, it really depends what the judge has had for breakfast, and like how that judge feels on that particular day. There's a lot of room for human errors and kind of human judgments and discretion. So it's down to the individuals. But there's a lot of good Gardaí as well out there. It's just, unfortunately, a lot of drug users getting a lot of slack lately, man. I mean, your Martin's World 420 News, it's hard to watch sometimes. It's just like seizure after seizure after seizure. And it is only increasing, because like your content's only getting longer. Like, your live streams go from like 1 hour to 2 hours and 3 hours, and I watch them. I get a lot of enjoyment from it. Yeah. But I'm like, damn, there's probably a huge amount more seizures happening
that we don't hear about
in this 6 months. Yeah, that we don't hear about. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like, imagine how many of the €4 cannabis cases that are actually out there that we do not hear about. There's only every now and again that they get reported on from the courts. There's so many court cases. Again, I could talk about multiple times I was in court before. I've not ever had my name in the court's pages because of being in court because of cannabis. So I'm one of these unknown cases that happened in the years past. And there's many people out there like me. I'd imagine there's probably people commenting there now at the moment in the comment section who've been through the courts and have never had their name in the media. So people are none the wiser that their case ever happened. And this is, again, my kind of thing with the 420 News. I'm trying to just bring all of this stuff into the one place and just to shine a light in it and say, hey guys, this is a massive, massive waste of resources. And then to shine a light in places like Portugal. So I suppose just to get on to Portugal and that, the Cosmic Care, I think I have a picture of the Cosmic Care set up. They were down there today at the Support Don't Punish event, were they?
Yes, they were. They're a major partner of the government here in their initiative and their agenda to kind of figure out what substances are being used here in Lisbon. They operate one facility. It's like not really central. Like, we had to take like an Uber to get there, and I managed to get a clip of it, so that should be online soon. Excellent. Where I got a sample tested. So to kind of run you through their kind of operation, you would arrive between their office hours. So I think it's Tuesdays and Wednesdays, like 2 p.m. to like, I think it's 6 or 8 p.m., something like that. So it's like two days in a week. And the setup is kind of like the old Help Not Harm office on Shandon Street. Remember the old bank? Like, there's a lot of like information and, quite useful information on books and reports and stickers and leaflets. Remember, like the dance safe cards? They kind of have their own version of the dance safe cards, which are just like very nice graphics of each one of the different drug, and then at the back information about each one, the dosing, which is important, like the setting and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of like check out that stuff if you're like waiting or something. And then there's a back room then. So it's 2 rooms, it's very small. And then in the back room, you fill out a survey, which actually takes quite a long time. It's like very extensive. It takes like 20 minutes. Anyway, it took me like 20 minutes. It goes through like, what drug do you think this is? What did you buy it as expecting what it would be? What drugs have you used in the last, 30 days, month, year? And then you leave your sample, and then within 2 to 3 days, you're given a ticket. In 2 to 3 days, you call the phone number, you give them the ticket number rather than like a name. There's no names taken, there's no personal information. The service is 100% free. There is no exchange of any details or money. The government pays for all of this, and you get the result then on the phone. So it's okay. Like I would say that like it's a great initiative. Like wow, to get drugs tested is really something that is needed in Ireland.
Big time.
However, when talking to and this is kind of again like when you design a system, you should really listen to the community of people who are using drugs, because like I sent a lengthy email like immediately to the government, to my contact in the government, Dr. João Goulão, and I just said like, well, a few years ago in 2015, 2016, we held a conference in the Buswells Hotel, and we had there a woman called Josie Smith from the Wedinos Project in Wales.
Mm-hmm.
And to describe that model, which differs now from Portugal, in Wales, they have one drug testing facility for all of the UK. So that's Wales, England, Scotland, and Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Not many people, the population of Wales is much smaller, obviously, than like England. And yet probably the majority of the drugs are getting tested and samples are from England. So what they do is the government have linked up an infrastructure that already exists, and that's the postal system. Mm-hmm. So the postal system operates several times a day. They make deliveries all the time, and it's a government service. It's the Royal Mail. And so the Royal Mail, service users are actually given these mylar envelopes, which are like military food grade, like seals that are smell proof and leak proof and the rest of it. There's a survey at the back of it, very small questionnaire, which just describes what did you think you bought this as. Again, there's no personal information and it's entirely free. So a person would place their sample into the envelope, would just go to any post box, put it in, and then every week up on the Wedinos website and out on the newsletter, if you're subscribed to the newsletter, but you can just go on the website, they take a picture of the sample, so you'll be able to identify it. Or I think maybe it might even be possible that there might even be a code on the envelope, just in case it's a white powder, and there might be many white powders. So I think there's even a code. So you identify it anyway in two ways, pictorial and using a unique number. Mm-hmm. And then they detail this. So this information is very important for public health, number one, for law enforcement. Yeah. But I mean, most importantly, the person themselves who's actually looking to get the drug tested, and whether that be a supplier, a dealer, a friend who's supplying to other friends, a person who's just consuming for themselves, the knock-on effect of finding out whether a drug is fentanyl instead of heroin, and your dose might have actually caused an overdose, or you sharing with your friend could have, maybe you would have survived, but you would have had to forever live with a debt that you might have just been completely ignorant to the fact that you were using a drug that was actually sold as another drug, which is about 90% of all drugs, by the way, sold on the street. Like, you really can't tell. Even with cannabis these days, you can't actually tell if it's sprayed with a synthetic or if it's actually cannabis.
No, it's definitely becoming more and more a worry for people out there anyway, as to whether they're getting tainted stuff. One of the lads was showing me some edibles over at his place last night, and they were nerd edibles, but I was just kind of talking about, the dangers. You don't know if this is actually whatever, but I was telling about some of the simple reagent kits that you can get. So I was actually tempted to go get a THC one and test these edibles from, just to see for the crack, like, just because you just never know. He said the taste is nice, and to be honest now, in fairness, there's been a few of those I've ate, and you can taste the oil off them. I know what the oil kind of tastes like, but it's still at the same time, it would be nice just to confirm that with a little reagent test or something simple like that.
I don't think I'd ever eat an edible that I didn't make myself, or get from a really trusted, like I say, really trusted, like very, 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 very close. And there's only like 2 people I know that would ever make edibles.
I'm probably one of them. Yeah,
me and you actually. No, there's like one other person, and if outside of that, to be honest, even in like a dispensary in the US, a lot of cases they're mislabeled. I think 50% of cases in a industry that's only really after profit, at the start they're kind of using, small buds or like these kind of ruderalis strains, and then then they move to like the leaves, or like, they're these like very low tech facilities that they don't really know how to grow cannabis, so they'll just use the bud for edibles. And like, even in that kind of legal situation or system, you're relying on the grower actually knowing what they're doing. You're relying on, an entity who's seeking profit, which is not very different from a drug dealer, in not lying to you if those flowers have gone moldy, or if there's any sort of problem in the drying process. And then of course in the illegal side, you're just, you're all of the above, and it could be tainted with some like ibuprofen or cough syrup or codeine or any drug you can get over the counter for like minimal cost, that just gives you a high.
Yeah, and there's people out there who don't realise that at all, and they just think, oh, I'll just buy this and it's going to be, as the guy told me, no, there's big dangers out there. It's so easy to be to adulterate in these products.
People don't know, and the media don't know when they report it, and they say cannabis is linked to X or Y, and it's like, no, how would you even know that was cannabis? Like, you can't actually trust any sources anymore.
Mm-hmm. No, the media, the journalists out there, there's very little integrity in them. They don't want to follow up on all of these cases, especially when there's a community of people out there crying out, saying, come here, there's something up with this. Like, if there's people being hospitalised and they're ending up with conditions such as that, there needs to be further investigations done. But not only that, there's a large amount of drugs being seized out there. We deserve to know the contents of these drugs. Are they coming in adulterated? There's been numbers of seizures of edibles. There's been no indicator from or any of the authorities who were seizing them. Are the products seized lining up with what's on the label? But again, you look at the Forensic Science Ireland article only 2 weeks ago. They can't even keep up with the drug samples that are coming through. Like, their job is just to criminalise. They don't care about the drug users, and they don't really care about the harm being done out there. It's just like, no, we have to test the drugs, make sure it's illegal drugs, and then we're going to criminalise the person we catch. But we don't. But that's it. Where's the value for the taxpayer in that? There's no value for the taxpayer.
Yeah. One of the things that they shared with me at Cosmic Care, and this is where I'm getting back to now, where designing the system could become a lot better. They only have 10 samples a week that they test, that they submitted to them. I couldn't believe it. It came back to like, why don't people just mail you the samples? Because Lisbon is the capital city. Mm-hmm. It's like, we're both from Cork. It's just like, why is Lisbon Portugal? Why would Dublin ever be Ireland? Like, there's people taking drugs all over the country in rural just as much as urban settings. And the thing is, their answer was very simple. Actually, they set up as a service 10 years ago illegally, and that's how they operated. People would mail them drugs, but then they were persecuted by the police because that's illegal. And then they just kind of like partnered then with the Boom Festival, who are, really good festival. Then I think it's the south of Portugal. I've never actually been to it, but very much harm reduction has always kind of been part of the Boom kind of philosophy or ethos.
Yeah.
And so there, I'd imagine they get a lot of samples, and that's where they really made an effect. And they were called, I think, Drug Check before, and then they rebranded to Cosmic Care. Government funds them, but still today they say they're blocked from doing the mail order sampling because the government or the I think it's the municipality who fund them, actually, the Lisbon municipality. They're saying it's an issue for the parliament to address legislatively, to legislate for some allowance that maybe postal officers or like officials can possess this. Like, it's crazy because in a country that have decriminalized, they can't do things that in the UK and in Wales, where they don't have decriminalization, there's no problem. It's like, we're the government, this is our company, we own the postal service, we're telling you, we're not like, we don't need to any of this, go to parliament and debate it. No, it's joint up thinking. There's an infrastructure that exists called the postal system. Why would we go outside of that and make people get Ubers who may to go up or may not live in the area and go and get their sample tested? So even in countries where there's decriminalization, there's sometimes a lack of, connected thinking and well-designed system. So I would hope that, when we are going to get one in Ireland, that we just do a very simple postal service. But actually, to be honest, you can do it in Ireland. If you go to Northern Ireland and you get one of these envelopes, you could just actually put your sample into the Royal Mail envelope, put it into any red post box, not agreeing with a red one, and and then that would be shipped off to Wales.
Yeah.
And that's how we detected. I don't know if you earlier on in the year there was another woman who organized a support. It was involved in support don't punish a few years ago in Dublin, I think, and she shared a thing on Twitter, which I immediately shared and posted about as well. Was that they identified the spice in the vape cartridges, the e-juice stuff, and this was a postal sample from County Antrim, Belfast, and all that she was saying. She was based in Dublin herself, and all that what she was saying was just, it wasn't me who posted a sample, but I'm just making you aware that if it's in Northern Ireland, it's in Ireland. Like, Northern Ireland is Ireland, so you know, how easy is it to come across the border for a drug or, you know, a drug dealer? It's very simple. So once it went out, like, we can actually kind of avail of that service, but it's very indirect right now. And I don't know. I had a bunch of the envelopes since they visited at the conference. They brought a load of their kind of like their annual reports, which had an envelope stuck inside it. So like, I had a bunch of them. I don't know how you acquire them otherwise. Maybe you go onto the website and maybe they mail it to you. So if you got like a parcel motel address, or if you knew someone, you might be able to get in the UK, you might be able to get them shipped there, but you'd have to, like, you know, travel to Northern Ireland, which isn't probably very easy right now.
I'm just looking at their website here. They have two options. Option 1, download and print a sample and effect record, and option 2, where to pick up a sample and effect pack. So this is about sample testing. So yeah, there's information up there. All right, I have the website up there on the screen anyway for people to find it if they need to. But you're saying that they have to post to it through the red post offices. There has to be through the Royal Mail one. It won't work through our green ones that are.
Yeah, so like, if they knew someone in Northern Ireland, they could probably mail it to them. I mean, what's the chances of anything like getting checked between the border? Like,
and that's all free.
That's 100% free.
Not even a stamp needed?
The stamp is paid for.
Man, that's so cool, isn't it? That's amazing.
The service has been operating for like 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, I can remember handing out the information packs you gave us from your office down on the end of Shandon Street. We distributed them in CIT at the time. We were talking about the services and the need for them here in Ireland. But I didn't actually realise that it was available through Northern Ireland. I thought it was just a thing that was in Wales at the time. But
I didn't know that either at the time, and it's only recently when I read that tweet, I was like, "Whoa, that actually changes everything." Like, that's, you know, we're all about kind of like hacking the system and trying to, like, you know, see where efficiencies are, or see how you can kind of like maximize safety. And if being safe and understanding what drug you're taking means traveling to Northern Ireland, it's actually almost worth it. Just go to the border, stay overnight, test whatever it is you're testing. If you know, if you're into the e-juice, or your friend who's interested in the gummies, they happen to be getting a consistent supply of this, and they're be consuming it for, you know, and it's their, you know, their primary consumption method. It might actually just be worth the next time they're able to go up, just like pop one up on the thing and just keep an eye on the website.
Nice. And over there as well, I suppose, in the event today, you were able to experience their drug consumption room. You were, it was, I think I have the picture here now. I'm just going to pop the picture up on screen for people. But
yeah, the video is going online like sometime in the next couple of hours. It's just uploading right now. So hopefully that'll be online and I can just share that. But I shared the photo as well on the social media earlier. Nice. It was really interesting. It was very interesting. Like I'm
just looking at the photo here now at the back of the van. Okay. You're chatting with a lady in the back of there.
She's a nurse. Yeah, Joanna.
She's a nurse.
So I just met her today, and so, you know, we get to the kind of place where the support don't punish. It's like a big square in like it's like not the tourist part. It's like the other part where there's like really good. We normally go there to eat. It's like really diverse. You have a lot of like migrants live there, like Indians, Africans, Asians. So, you know, they know how to cook way better food than the Portuguese. So we actually hang out there a lot more. We go to like a hot pot place up the road, but it's a little bit kind of like, it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit like poor, but also like a bit hipster, because there was just like really nice bars where we had like some unreal tacos while they were setting up. And so the van arrives, and, you know, it's just like a big van. Like I don't know what kind of van it was. It might have been a Ford or a Mercedes. I don't know, whichever kind of van anyway. Just like a normal kind of van. And the back, it was just all converted at the back. It was white, and it had the Lisbon like logos, kind of like partner-owned organizations on it. Like GAT is the name of the organization. That's I don't know if that woman was part of, but there's a few organizations that are part of this kind of like drug consumption unit. There's like maybe 5 or 6 funded by the Lisbon municipality, and then it's like Unidad de dos Sante or something like that. So it's like health unit, I guess, is like what it's saying on it. So just this health unit, white van. You really wouldn't know other than it being a health unit. So you're kind of like, oh, that could just be kind of a hospital on wheels or a clinic on wheels. There could be some students getting trained or something. Like I've seen these before in Geneva. I've seen them in Geneva, but I just thought that it was like supplying materials to people, but actually it probably was the same thing. This drug consumption room. And what was noticeable was the 2 windows at the top were just fully open, kind of like on a camper. Like you'd have one window at the front and then one window at the back, and they were just open. So I thought that maybe it was a unit to consume crack cocaine. Maybe it was like a smoking unit. Like maybe they were venting it out at the top or something. I really didn't know. I was like looking at it for a while, waiting for some smoke to come up above it, like just like someone just climbing up and putting their head over the window or something. But no, it's an injecting unit, so that it's only in drug injecting use. So there was a couple of service users, politely kind of waiting around. They would just kind of knock, and like the door would open slightly at the back. There was a female nurse, and I just saw a female service user like climbing in. She must have been in there for about like 15 minutes, maybe maximum 20, because I was like, timing it to try and see a good time to kind of go over and do the interview. So when she came out, I approached her, just like politely asked if it's a good time, like no problem at all. She was delighted, sure, to hear that someone was interested in recording it. There was no media at the event, I don't know if there's any media at your event, but there was no media at this event. So like, it's important to get these things documented, as you know, but you are your own media, so it doesn't really matter. And so to describe it, and you can see it there in front of you, there's like 2 chairs and a little bench. So I guess you could probably fit like a couple, maybe like 3 or 4 people in there if you needed to. So maybe if 2 people wanted to go in, or maybe if there was 2 people working, maybe if there was like a male and a female, I think that's probably how they do it. But maybe it's all females, I don't know. And service user would come in, and basically they stocked needles, syringes, paraphernalia, like all the rest of it. They had information. I don't know that they supply stuff like food and like just general like sanitary kind of items. I don't know to the extent of like, but there's it's a whole well-being, welfare, harm reduction service, right? So they had like, there was kind of a lot of information that you could have obtained, or you could just go there, and it just seems like you could just be given clean, sterile, brand new, needles, and then a disposal of that needle before you go, which is obviously very, which is like really important for any city to have such a safe environment for people to do something that they're otherwise doing down in dark side alleys and in public. So I would say that it was like really downplayed, no advertising, real kind of subtle. Like there was kids playing on a scooter, like they have these like Lime scooters everywhere here. So people are like, there was like a kid, and his dad, and they were a family. They were like chasing each other on the scooter, and they were just going around. They didn't realize they were just circling this van, this like drug consumption unit, and just like the giggles of the child and the innocence of it. And we were just in the middle of the city center. No one knew, I don't think, what actually was going on. Yeah. Which was really nice, like the integrity of that person who's using and injecting that drug. They're not scaring the parent. The child would never know, but like the child would base their reaction on the parent, and the parent had no idea. So so there was nobody was disturbed. That was the thing. No one even noticed.
And how much risk is there at that point for a needle to be left behind?
Zero, because you have to discard the needle before you leave.
Which is the biggest problem here in the streets in Cork at the moment. There's a lot of derogatory terms used for people who leave needles behind, but at the end of the day, these people are unable to even look after themselves at the best of time, and you expect them to be able to kind of clean up after themselves then as well after. It's a lot to be expected of people when they're at a very low point in life, which many injecting drug users can, not all, but many can be at that point. When I was
Yeah,
in the city today, we were kind of protesting outside the city library by the Three Fools Coffee, and I got a lot of people's attention by drawing to their attention the fact that sitting amongst them right now could have been somebody with heroin in their pocket waiting to sell it to somebody coming by. I was like, because that's exactly what happens because of prohibition. These drugs are being sold openly on our streets, exactly where our kids are going around playing, and we don't need that. We see the results of that above in Dublin, where there's bloody shootouts going on above there, and it's just really getting out of hand.
yeah. And right next to that Three Fools Coffee, there's also a public toilet.
Yes.
I don't know if it's open at the moment with the thing, but the situation. But
Yeah.
you know, like previously, I'm pretty certain that people would have used public toilets as a place to privately, use their drug of choice. And like, what are the chances of someone like who's not supervised having some sort of altercation with injecting an unknown substance into their body, and potentially they're kind of like creating a mess there that's like not, could be the scattering of the needle, could be some blood if they miss the vein or hit the vein or whatever it is. And it's not an ideal scenario, but like that's the way in which Cork City is designed right now. There are people using drugs, and there are public toilets, and there are dark alleyways, a lot of them up around the hills and stuff, up around like the north side, up around near the river there, and up near Firth and Crane and around. And the biggest place I think where they mapped out drug injecting was actually behind the Mercy Hospital. Or is it the Mercy? Yeah, the Mercy Hospital. I think the alleyway there behind the A&E where the ambulances park. So like that's an ideal place to put a permanent drug injecting facility, or a mobile one, whichever is where people are using it. So just bring the service to the people, and you would never have to question any of. We'd never have to witness this.
But you'd probably have a repeat of what went on above in Dublin. You've a well-to-do school there in that area as well, and you also have the Tyndall Institute. Imagine trying to put a supervised injection centre in there, and the objections that would be coming in from these guys and the parents of the kids. Oh, geez, you can't be putting that in. My Johnny only goes to school 100 metres up the road, not in my backyard. But it's already going on there, as you just said. That's a very common place where they injecting drug use. They would much rather have it go on in the back street where their kids are walking past anyway, rather than behind a closed door in the hands of healthcare professionals as well. I know it's hard to get through to people like that, because that's why things haven't progressed above in Dublin, is because of this NIMBYism. It's really holding us back, and I wonder, will we encounter more of that as well going forward?
Well, Martin, like revolutions, when they occur, they're usually unpopular. They're unpopular to the general population, but it takes leadership to stand up, even when times are, unpopular or not the ideal setting, or you might lose some votes. And that's the thing that's happening in Dublin inner city right now, is with Merchants Quay's application with the planning authority and their approval by the planning authority to convert their I think they're doing a conversion where their basement, I think they're moving their cafe to the basement, or they're doing something where they had to get planning permission anyway to extend on, which is their building, but they had to convert one of the rooms from one purpose to another purpose, which is say like cafe to drug consumption unit or something like that. And in this planning permission, they got granted. It was put in, I think, in 2016. It got permission, and then since then there were, I think, 320 something odd objections, mostly by the local businesses who objected to this. Finally, I think these were rectified, and I think with these stages of planning, I'm not really like knowledgeable of this, but I think there's different stages. There's the public, can object to this, neighbors can object, but then I think it still comes back to the planning authority whether they want to consider these objections as like serious objections, like if someone's building an extension and it extends into someone's garden, or like the view looks right into someone's house, they might consider that objection as like, you're like your crystal glass extension, can't like take over someone like your neighbors, like garden or something like that. But this is literally like the basement where it's not even in use right now. They wanted to convert it from a storage room to a drug consumption unit, where it's already an established like homeless service, and they do a lot of really good things there. And throughout COVID, they've been doing like people have been able to like get food there. They've been able to like seek shelter there, and get. They already operate a needle exchange there, so like it's very consistent for this service that operates and already has been in operation for many years now, to also allow people to inject within this building if it means that all of these problems and risks will be mitigated. And then you have a school who's taking it further, and they've taken a case to the High Court against the planning authority for not taking their objections seriously. So
it's mad.
It is mad, and it is up to the judge at the end of the day to make the right decision, and that decision will be made in mid-July. But we can't assume that the judge is going to make the right decision. I mean, I hope they do.
Well, you have to think about it this way, like if it's any of the judges who've been criminalising drug users and drug dealers, they're probably going to have a pretty biased position in this one. Drug users are not liked people in the community of judges anyway. Like at least that's in my experience, and that's a lot of experience now after the 420 news and the way in which they refer to both drug dealers and drug users as problematic people within our society. I can't see a judge finding in their favour.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's this belief, and it's an unfounded belief, and it's not. There's no legal standing for any of this. That people who use drugs do not have any rights, and they don't have the same equal rights as the law-abiding citizens of Ireland, because of their particular drugs of choice. Now, the same argument and belief was also held very recently for people with particular sexual orientations, particular ethnicities or race. These belief systems are like extremely dangerous, and they're not founded in any laws, and they're just absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
So like whatever decisions made in July by whatever judge, and depending on how the mood is of that judge on that particular day, like there will be grounds to appeal, I imagine. Sorry if it's getting loud here. There's just something passing my window, but there will be a grounds for appeal. And like the case in, say, Vancouver with Insight, which was the first drug consumption room, I think, in the world, definitely in Canada. Like it took 2 Supreme Court challenges by the government against this illegally ran facility, which was a homeless hostel at the top, I think a food shelter at the bottom, and also a drug. I think it was an injecting consumption unit. Twice the Stephen Harper's Conservative government sued Insight, brought them to court, and twice the judges of the Supreme Court level, which probably took a lot of appeals, got to the Supreme Court level, sided with the people of that area and said East Vancouver has a drug problem. Until you, government, come up with a better solution, this service stands. This lady's service stands. There is no objections here by me, because as it stands, like the law is the law, the Constitution is the Constitution. It's equal rights for all, and you have a right to health, and you have a right to life. And the right to life has been defended by this country, culturally, since the beginning of the founding of this state. And to say that someone for a particular choice of drugs has no right to life is just appalling. But what with the mobile drug consumption unit, and I just want to conclude on going back to this, is there's 4 stations in which they operate, so they're not in one location at any one time. They operate 7 days a week, a lot of hours during each day, and 7 staff members in the whole organization, which is really impressive what they're doing with very little. But the people who are using drugs know that these 4 stations, and at these particular times, the van will appear, and they'll be able to kind of, in some way, like you'd obviously like there to be kind of more, and maybe I think that's what Lisbon are doing. So they've opened a permanent drug consumption unit facility 3 weeks ago. So just in June, the start of June, they've opened the first permanent one. They're looking to open the second permanent one. They have the mobile one, and then maybe there's going to be more mobile ones. But that's exactly it. You're right. Like they had to start with the mobile unit, and I don't even know that it was like Vancouver. Did it have to set up kind of illegally first, or some people just had to put themselves out there and just say, I'm standing up for what's right here, and I'll take the legal ramifications later and consequences later, but I know that I'm right. So this arguing, this talking, we're done with talking. We're just going to act from here on in. And there's a great sense of solidarity with these like 6 or 7 organizations that work and operate the mobile drug unit each and every day of the week. I think it's 365 days a year.
Nice.
And it's only now they're funding it, which maybe they were doing it from the start. Like I know that it's operating for 2 or 3 years. And now from that, now the permanent, and then they're going to use the permanent one as a pilot for like a year. And they have 100 users signed up to it so far. And then depending on that, so it's a domino effect. These are going to spread, and the harm is going to be reduced, and the number of fatalities, which is already quite low because of decriminalization, to be honest with you, Portugal have one of the lowest, and that's like the big benefit of decriminalization, I think, so far. But this is just going to be on a whole nother level of like harm reduction. But still, my very...
No, I was just going to say that you got to catch up with João Glow, and he was filling you in on that as to how when decriminalisation took place, that there was kind of a knock-on effect where there was a lot of benefits seen rather quickly, which actually hindered things. Then he was kind of saying it slowed things down. So you said they only have the first permanently fixed supervised injection centre now opened up 3 weeks ago. But that probably would have happened a long time ago hadn't there been this kind of a turnaround. I think there was a reduction in injecting drug users was seen after the introduction of decriminalisation. But then the recession kind of hit, and that went back up then again, and the service was needed, but it was just slowed down then.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Like the kind of Dr. João Glow, being on chairing the committee in 1997 to 2001 and recommending drug decriminalization, which was eventually acted on in 2001. His mess. What he talked about today was like, you introduce services based on the citizens, or based on the trends, or based on the kind of problems. And they had intended on immediately opening a drug consumption room following the decision in 2001, decriminalizing all drugs. But to their kind of, they didn't know it was going to work so well. Injecting drug use went from, whatever rate it was. I know for a fact that it was like, transmissible diseases was quite high. Like I think like upwards of 47% or something amongst the drug injecting population. So there was public drug use. Not only that, they were sharing needles. Not only that, HIV, was being, and hepatitis was being transmitted amongst this population, like on the streets. And this was the crisis point. So it took this crisis to get decriminalization. They always intended on opening a drug consumption room, but what they didn't realize was actually decriminalization worked so well alongside, outreach and, all the savings they made in police, and investing this in social, and investing this in other things, and also reinvesting in other police as well, of course. Like it wasn't just like, but injecting drug use dropped dramatically. And I didn't know that. He told me that today. I actually didn't even know that. I just assumed that it was the fatalities that dropped because of the services that were now allowed to work without fear of the law. And if you remember, like working in Electric Picnic all those years ago in 2016, like people were just very afraid to even talk to us about what drugs they had used.
Oh shit, man!
And you really had to get it out of them.
That was an eye-opening experience. That, like, just to see the way in which some of those other more professional services, the Blue Badge, was it what they were called, like, and even Code Blue, yeah, and even around Gardaí, we were there providing the harm reduction services, and the cars are coming down there looking to like fucking search people and stuff and everything, and they're like, no, look, come here, these people are in our care. You shouldn't be coming in here searching them. This person's like in a vulnerable state. It was ridiculous, the attitude that we kind of witnessed that time at the weekend there.
Yeah,
at Electric Picnic doing that harm reduction
like
work.
without decriminalization, that's kind of the risk. And
Yeah.
even if they manage to open a drug consumption unit in Dublin, all the like, I don't say this about the Gardaí in Dublin. I really don't think it's their priority, to be
No.
honest. Like, I think capital cities are just a bit different as well, perhaps, but um, they could do this anyway if they wanted. They could just drive around the homeless hostels. But like, yeah, you wouldn't like to see, anyone taking advantage and knowing that people are clearly going in here to inject drugs.
Yeah.
So all we got to do is just wait outside
Yeah.
and wait for them. And before they go in, we just take them away and we just persecute them. Whereas here, there's no chance of that happening because, well, there's very little chance of that happening because the police, it's not their priority. They don't get any, I don't see any benefit from doing this. And in actual fact, the nurse today in the interview mentioned that the only interactions they ever have with police is when police refer people who they find using drugs, and they just say, "Oh, would you, maybe you'd prefer to go to, one of these mobile units. Like, we'll drive you there if you want."
As it should be. That's how it should
Yeah.
be, in fairness. Like, that's how the community policing should be done. Oh, you're an injecting drug user. Did you know that there's a supervised injection centre down there? These guys will help take care of you and stuff like, and look, don't worry about it. There's going to be places down there you can get rid of your needles. This is like, it's such a no-brain idea. I have a little clip there that I'll play for people from a video you uploaded recently over on Casa dos Drogas. And it's with João Glow. And I suppose this little segment that we chose would be maybe more relevant to the audience that's out here.
It was recorded today.
And this is only recorded today as well, so good turnaround time. Fair play. I'll play this there.
Of course, there are some steps forward. There are some new initiatives. For example, the legalization of cannabis for non-medical purposes. That is going to be discussed very briefly, but around that there's no consensus as usual. But about what we did in the past 20 years is completely integrated in our framework, in the way that common people thinks about those problems. So I think this is the good thing. And also that idea that I already expressed, that we open the path to turn this normal within the treaties that we have signed everywhere. So we don't have to fear to be in confront with the international community because it has been completely integrated by it.
Well, all revolutions are unpopular at the time,
Yep.
and may be judged by doing the unpopular thing at a time when there was no consensus, and finding a solution and battling it out, as it took a long time, as I understand. And to refer yourself as the Dean, I think that's a nice title for you, and may impart knowledge on the rest of us, as we are students and we're all learning on either side, whether prohibitionists or activists or healthcare workers. There is just so much to learn on this topic.
And there's a very important topic, either on the new statute of the Pompidou Group or in the strategy of the European Union, that is a stronger role, a stronger recognition of the role of the civil society in drawing all those policies and intervening and creating fora where we can meet, where we can discuss in an open way and integrate most of the ideas, because most of the more progressive ideas come really from the civil society.
Ciao, thank you so much.
Thank you, Graham. It was a pleasure, and I want to thank you for being who you are, doing such bright work all around the world.
So yeah, as ye heard there from João Glow, Portugal are going to be considering legalising cannabis very soon, which is very positive news. It was something I was talking about recently, but I don't know if you got time to actually see some of the suggestions that were made there on the bill. in Portugal, but it is very conservative.
Have you had a chance to see them? I actually haven't.
Yeah, but both sides are kind of very conservative. There's they're all about limiting the number of plants people can grow, limiting the amount of
Okay.
cannabis people can
All
possess,
right.
the amount you can buy.
Okay.
There's a lot of infringements on people's rights there around the
Okay.
possession and buying of cannabis. So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
look, it's at least the conversation is taking place anyway. And these are things that can be improved going forward.
Yeah, like talking to one of the activists here, not on this trip, but on the last time I was out here doing the exhibition, another lady called Joanna, different Joanna, but also she's the driver of the mobile drug unit. The other nurse was Joanna as well. And so what they were, eventually they were just told by the government, okay, you keep going on about this legalization thing. Clearly it means something. So, it's very quite consistently being like requested now. So instead of us just ignoring you, like we always have done, this democracy kind of thing requires like consensus, and consensus, requires consensus within a democracy, or a parliament to make these decisions. So go out on our task to you, the activists or the civil society, as Joe references there, like the NGOs, the non-government organizations, or campaigns like our own, is to go out, talk with the public, and find where the consensus lies. So on the spectrum of, full, whatever, like free, like what, like say when we had Howard Marks in UCC, and I asked Howard Marks, like, what model of legalization, and he said, like cabbage.
Yes.
I was like, wow. So that's like on the spectrum of being able to buy and obtain cannabis like you can obtain vegetables,
Yeah.
to the extreme where a person doesn't, whatever, a prohibitionist. Like, where is the consensus? And that's the difficulty of a democracy, is balancing these two views. And often it's the one that has the more voters that politicians go for. But now, as I say, with these, with generations skipping by, it actually turns out that there's probably more people consuming cannabis than, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or certainly 30 or 40 years ago, when people like me, Al Martin, were just first getting into politics. So, instead of them ignoring, they just said, go find the consensus. And if it's like some middle ground between those two extremes, present it to us. We want the plan so that we can take it forward without losing voters here and voters there, and like totally alienating and going against the sort of democratic consensus of what the general public kind of believes. So yeah, like that's a task for us to do as well in Ireland. It's not an easy one, because we'd like to just design things as efficiently as possible, respecting human rights and respecting freedoms that we should be looking for as citizens of any community or society. So I suppose it's kind of the realistic approach, and Portugal just being that kind of like really like pragmatic society that they are, in order to survive. And be connected to Europe, but being the poorer country of the rest of Europe, and really being smaller compared to the rest of them, but they're really being able to pack their punch. There is this argument, or this discussion now, that's going to be held within all European countries next week in the Council of Europe in Strasbourg.
Right,
so I'm going to be catching up with João when he returns from his trip, and the next time I'm able to come out here, maybe this month, maybe next month. And if there's another event to volunteer at, for example, I probably will be out here anyway. So I'll try and connect with them and just see, like, I would have tried to go out there, but there are like some of the meetings are public. Like there's a symposium that's public, which like Minister Frank Fien will be speaking at. So like it would have been interesting to kind of go to that. But anyway, that's going to be streamed online on Thursday. The meetings are going to begin on Monday. And those are between governments, so I don't think like public can go into those meetings anyway. But yeah, like Joe says, that's like Portugal. They're trying to find consensus. Now you're trying to bring it to the bigger picture, and you treat like Europe as a region, and you try to make like regional decisions that are based on democracies of like 28 member states of the EU, but the Council of Europe includes like Russia. So the European region includes Armenia and includes Georgia. So you're trying to get a consensus now, like next week, with countries that don't even have methadone. I think Russia are the only country in Europe that don't, that their scientists believe that like methadone isn't the thing. So fair enough, then give heroin. You know, if you don't think methadone is the drug, then give heroin away. But they don't do that either, unsurprisingly. So cannabis, as he says, these agendas by some countries are just very difficult on an international level, which is why I left. Like I used to work for that group, Pompidou Group, following like my graduation from international human rights law in Galway. And after so many months, like I just said, you know what, I'm going back to Ireland, because when I was out there, I missed the equal marriage referendum. I couldn't vote on that because you can't do the postal vote thing. And I was out there, and like really would have, you know, the cost of like, you know, coming back and forth, it was just like too much, which was really annoying that the embassy wouldn't like, you know, let me vote there, which is like another argument problem. But anyway, and then I also missed like the announcement of Aon O'Rear Dawn. He was just coming out with the decrim stuff, and I just thought, you know what, like my heart is in Ireland. I need to come back to Ireland and work on stuff there, because this international stuff, never mind the regional stuff, which I was working on, the UN stuff as well, which we've done some work on. Like you're bringing in countries like like China, you know, Saudi Arabia, Philippines, and you're trying to get a consensus. There's there's very little consensus there. Yeah, go away, exactly. So at least in Europe, we have like the European Convention on Human Rights, and actually Europe is a good source of law for Ireland when they're to ignore us. So, you know, we can tap into this resource. This European project is a great resource for us. And, you know, we can learn from other models. Like, you know, in Portugal, like I can cross the border to Spain and get access to cannabis, no problem, through a club. So like, I hope that narrative will kind of seep into their policy or their legislator bill here. And definitely, I hope that that'll happen back in Ireland as well. So, you know, we'll keep going, but this thing is difficult, and we do have to get the consensus. We have to find it. We have to do it in a democratic way. You know, even though revolutions are often unpopular, you know, to like, as Vincent Lavery was talking the other day with us as well, down in Cork at our meeting, you know, we have to come together as a movement, united against the criminalization of drug users. That's just, we can all agree on that. Yep. So we're going to be launching Decriminalise Ireland to that effect. That's yourself, that's myself, and that's other key stakeholders, and any other campaigns, and anyone else out there is like who's interested. You know, you are welcome to join, because it's going to require us to do this work. Nobody's going to be doing this for us. Certainly not a government, definitely not a political party. So if you are interested in changing the laws or the policy, then get involved in what's, I think, going to be the biggest campaign that's going to be, you know, around this topic in Ireland in history.
Yeah, definitely. And if anybody wants to get involved in that, we'll be certainly looking for volunteers then as well to help out with some of that campaign, because there's a lot of work ahead of us to be done, because as we learn on Thursday when Frankie Feehan goes and gives these few words, I'd imagine it's just going to be not a big wall of ignorance. So we have to climb over that together.
Yeah, we have to climb over that, and like just take him out of the picture, and just take any minister who, like, you know, clearly won't listen. So probably not even worth wasting time. And instead, we're going to focus on this nationwide tour, and we're going to tour around the country, and we're going to bring this discussion anywhere we're invited. But definitely, we're going to bring this discussion to about a dozen or so towns and villages and counties, and then we're going to keep going from there. Anyone that wants us back, you know, we'll come to your town or village as well. If you can, you know, host us, get a venue, you know, we'll go there, and we'll partner with any local activists or speakers or workers, you know, you have there. Obviously, we do want to engage with the media, the politicians, and everybody else. But as Johnny Keenan says, you know, we'll put the name tag on the chair on the stage of the local councillors, the local politicians, the TDs. Yeah. And we let the camera capture if they turn up and they sit on the chair that's been assigned to them on the number, I would say, top 3 issues in Ireland right now, like, you know, poverty and homeless being like probably top 2, and like drugs being so connected with that, but also also connected with issues of like corruption, also weakening our institutions, which was a recent Europol report, that they're more frightened now. The European police force are more frightened now that drug gangs are becoming more powerful than countries within the European Union.
Yeah.
It's like, that's insane. And we are like of the smallest of them outside Malta. We should be very worried about this.
That's just crazy to think, like, there's drug gangs more powerful than countries within the European Union. That's just a thought that you wouldn't really think that like that person who's telling you this is the truth, but that's really is the truth. You look at the Kinahans and some of the other more powerful gangs, and they got caught with was it like €4 billion worth of cocaine there recently in Berlin? I think it was it 4 billion? I think it was some crazy amount of heroin or cocaine that was seized in Berlin. But there's been in the media there, I seen that the Kinahans were supposed to be part of this kind of cartel of people who were in charge of that consignment of drugs. But like, yeah, that's a serious amount of money, like, for anybody to be in control of, and money is power, really, like, when you look at it.
Unfortunately, no, it is. I mean, with money you can buy,
Cops.
you can buy,
Politicians.
you can buy any, yeah, exactly. You can corrupt even the most uncorruptible, unfortunately, shouldn't be the way, but oftentimes people voted in are quite weak when it comes to temptations and profit.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's not always been the way, and it's not everybody, but it certainly is a fair few people.
There is, yeah. No, I think that's a good place for us to leave it. So with that call to action for the people out there far and wide across the island of Ireland, get in touch if you'd like to volunteer your time with us. We've a calendar of events. They're going to be starting in August, running through September. Is that right, Graham? I can't remember what the calendar was.
Yeah, we are hoping to get them.
Provisionally.
We would have been starting in June, and then like there was no chance of kind of reopening indoor events, and then
right.
we were kind of looking at July, but even that doesn't even look like kind of that's going to be happening now. So I think like the latest, end of August, early September. So if you are interested in hosting one of these events with us, or you might know of a venue that might help us out and let us talk there, please do get in touch. The website decriminalize.ie will be going live, I think, in the next like 24 hours to 48 hours. We're just waiting on the .ie domain registration, which takes like a bit of time to process. The website's done, but we're just waiting for the domain host to just like get it online. Sweet. So yeah, please check it out. We'd love to get you involved.
That's the job. Come on, Graham, thanks very much again for sharing with us your experiences from over in Lisbon. And
anytime, Martin.
I look forward to having you back on again, no doubt in a not too distant future anyway. So go on and get some sleep, man.
Thank you, Martin.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, thanks for what you do, Martin. I really appreciate you and your channel and all your viewers, because I don't get to watch all of them anymore as much as I used to, but I do pop into like maybe 2 of the 3 shows a week, and the community is growing, and that's what we need. We need solidarity. Yeah, we need to protect them and help each other out.
Yeah, and I've pretty much learned all my skills from yourself, really, like in campaigning and activism, like so. I'm only exactly. Yeah, exactly. Go on, Graham, and we'll chat soon again, bud.
Thanks, Martin. Ihava.